From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Ageless Enthusiasm. Coming up on this Ageless Enthusiasm, I speak to two local celebrities whose voices you just might recognize. Phil Thompson from 104.5 The Fox is going to tell us how he stays inspired.
Stories about the artists, and I love the DJs.
I will also be speaking with Anthony Powell, a local reporter with ties to Hollywood.
Hogan Tiro's, he actually wrote the pilot for Hogan Tiro's.
All that and more on this episode of Ageless Enthusiasm. Welcome to Ageless Enthusiasm. I'm your host, Mindy East. And we're here tonight. We're going to talk about entertainment and local celebrities. And my first guest is Phil Thompson of 104.5. Phil Thompson, hi. You have always been a radio guy, right?
I have. I've wanted to do this since I was a kid. I mean, a little kid. You know, because I was a child of the 60s, preteen in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're the same age about.
As a kid, you had a couple of options: go outside and play, or stay in your room and listen to the radio. And I did both. And you know, I loved the music, and I loved the stories about the artists, and I loved the DJs. The DJs were the people that that brought it to me. Actually, there were two things I wanted to do when I was a kid: be a professional musician in a band, or be a DJ. And I quickly found out I had no musical talent at all. So DJ was the way to go. So I started, emulating the guys I heard on the air. I would call in to play contests or just make conversation with these guys. So much so that, my parents keyed into this, that this is what I was doing. And at one point, I don't know, I was probably 9 years old, and they got me a cassette recorder with a microphone for Christmas, right? And so I was recording everything. We would go to the store and I would be like, we're just now passing Central and West Street on our way to Dillon's. Dillon's, you found your food store, things like that. So
you're a natural.
So yeah, I mean, I was practicing since I was a kid to do this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So who was your favorite?
My favorite?
DJ. I'm going to say a name. J. Robert Dark. Remember that one?
I do. But the ones I remember that were local, in fact, I still think there's one here in town that works in television, Ken Clifford. Ken Clifford worked at KLEO. In fact, all of the DJs I remember worked at KLEO at the time because that was the big station. Mm-hmm. E. Alvin Davis was one from when I was a kid. But I won Alice Cooper tickets. I was caller number 8 on KLEO one time. So yeah,
wow.
I'd play all the contests.
Back in what, 73, 74?
It was, 72 or 73.
Okay,
Henry Levitt Arena,
yeah.
$1 Billion Babies tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't go to that. My parents wouldn't let me go.
See, and that's the thing. My parents, they bought me all the great albums of the day. I mean, they bought me the Led Zeppelins, they bought me the Rod Stewarts, they brought me the
Black Sabbath.
Yes, I was going to say that. Black Sabbath, Masters of Reality. They were the type of parents that would go to the record store and go, what are the kids listening to these days?
Wow.
So we had all the great albums. So my musical knowledge, goes back to the fact that I had these albums when I was growing up.
You had some cool parents.
I did have cool parents.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are your folks still alive?
My mother is still alive. She's going to be
Okay.
90 next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in that that go-to kid that we talk about on the show. You've got an elderly parent,
Mm-hmm.
and you're still pursuing your career and living your life to the fullest.
Oh, I am. I feel like I'm doing my best work right now. Seriously, I feel more focused right now than I ever have. And I don't see retirement, on the horizon anywhere. The thought of not working and doing what I'm doing scares me.
Kind of scary.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of your segments, you've got about 3 that I think are pretty popular.
Yeah.
One especially with my husband, Mark, and that's Shower Thoughts.
Uh-huh.
I don't think we can talk about that on.
Shower thoughts get a little racy at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can talk about that one. But you have Phil versus the mayor.
Yep,
segment.
the Phil v. Mayor challenges.
And then another one that I like to listen to is what are you doing at the courthouse?
What you doing at the courthouse, because everybody's got a story.
Yeah. What's the craziest story you've heard?
Oh my gosh, that's impossible to say. There are people, the thing about the courthouse is people are there trying to right their wrongs, right? They're there getting their life straight. And so they really enjoy talking about it because it's funny to them, the stories that got them there. There was a gal that had fingernails that were like this long, and she was there because she pinched her boyfriend, and her boyfriend filed assault charges against her. And they called her Little Pinchy at the courthouse.
Now, are you catching these people on the way in or the way out?
Both. Both.
So depending on what news they've heard and what the ruling was, they might be in a better mood.
Yeah, and sometimes, you got to be really careful because there's some very, very serious things that go on at the courthouse, and you want to be respectful, and you don't want to catch somebody who's, in a really bad situation. So I will, and I don't want to say I profile, but I'll look at people and go, they're talking, they're laughing, so they're obviously having a good time, so they're going to be easily approachable because something that happened to them isn't that serious if they're smiling and laughing.
Well, you have to read the room.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Even if it's a front
Absolutely.
of the courthouse.
But some of the nicest people I've met out there, it's really, really fun to do that, as odd as it seems.
Okay, what about the mayor, Phil versus the mayor segment?
Phil v. Mayor challenges started with Jeff Longwell when the NCAA tournament came to town in 2018. We wanted to promote the city and we wanted to promote basketball, so we had a game of horse at the YMCA downtown, only we changed it to mayor instead of horse. And he ended up winning, and it was so much fun. We said, we got to do this on a regular basis. So about every month, we would think of something else. We did a home run derby. We did a bar sports challenge where we do darts and pinball and foosball and shuffleboard. We did axe throwing.
Who wins? Who was the visual winner?
I think Mayor Longwell ended up barely winning. We had like probably a dozen challenges. It'd go back and forth. I beat him at putting, and he's a golfer, and I am not.
Was he a good loser?
No. But that was the fun of it, is the trash talk, right?
I know. I know, John.
Once Brandon Whipple won, I reached out to him and said, listen, I do this. And he goes, I was expecting your call. And so he got on board with the challenges. And it's all about...
Is he competitive?
Yes, very much so. The build up to it, the week-long trash talking, where I call him up and he'll talk trash on me and I'll do the same. And we did that with Longwell as well. And then the challenge itself, then we film it and then we post it. But it's also about humanizing the mayor, that position where people just hear about the mayor in the political arena or what they're doing or not doing for the city. This makes them human.
Yeah.
And a lot of fun. And both of them, I mean, different personalities, but they both were so on board with it. And they both could talk good smack.
Oh, you got to talk good smack.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Now, what about your music as far as what bands have you worked with that were really fun to hang out with?
Well, what's great about that is I got to meet all the bands that, well, not all the bands, most of the bands that I grew up listening to. The Rolling Stones and Rod Stewart and Pink Floyd and Alice Cooper. I mean, I've met them. I've talked to them. Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Aerosmith, any of the big bands in the 80s.
Pretty
I
cool.
met. Yeah, but to have met, like I said, the ones from the 70s. I met Pete Townsend of The Who, for God's sake. And having them be just normal people. Because when I met them, it wasn't just, here, sign this autograph, and then you move on, you get a picture or whatever. It was an honest to gosh conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Phil, I'm going to pause just a minute. We're going to hear from another well-known celebrity voice here in the community, and we'll come right back to you in just a few minutes. My next guest joins me in the beautiful Doma restaurant in Wichita, Kansas. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you. So nice to be with you in this beautiful setting. I've never been here before.
I wanted to bring you here because you kind of match the settings. You're a guy from Malibu.
Yeah, Malibu, California, of all places. You don't meet too many people from Malibu, California.
No. And you have such an incredible backstory that most people know you from KSN as an anchor.
Right.
You're also with PBS and Positively Kansas.
Right.
But I want to go back to, where did this all begin for you?
Well, as you mentioned, I grew up in Malibu, which is inhabited by many people in the entertainment industry, and that's the case with me. My dad was a screenwriter. He wrote for a lot of the old famous shows that are still on, still enjoyed today.
Iconic.
Hogan's Heroes. He actually wrote the pilot for Hogan's Heroes, developed the character of Sergeant Schultz. Wrote for Andy Griffith, Mary Tyler Moore, Gomer Pyle. Wrote some Happy Days, MASH. So yeah, I grew up, surrounded by that business. I was pretty young at the time, so I really wasn't aware of it. I remember being 3 or 4 years old, and my parents had a cast party for the cast of Hogan's Heroes. So I have faint memories of that.
Colonel Klink.
Colonel Klink. I remember Sergeant Schultz in particular because John Banner was a big man with a deep baritone voice. So I can still faintly make him out in our house.
Oh, that's awesome.
And of course, I had some very famous classmates, Charlie Sheen, Rob Lowe, went to junior high and high school with them. Sean Penn, he was older than I was. But again, Malibu is full of entertainment industry people. Yeah.
Teeming with life.
Yeah.
Isn't that where you kind of caught the acting bug?
I was interested in acting, but my real passion was being a newscaster, or in particular a sportscaster. So I went to school for that, got my degree in broadcast journalism. Around the time that I was in college, some of the people that I grew up with, like Rob Lowe, like Charlie, started making it big in the acting world. And then, of course, with my dad's influence, I decided to hang around LA for a while and get my hand in it. I had some small roles on General Hospital, the old show Matlock with Andy Griffith. And then, I don't really like to admit this, but I was a Bachelor on the Dating Game.
How did that go?
It went well. I mean, I got to pick. I wasn't picked. I was the picker.
Okay.
I still don't know how it happened. I went to audition and they called me back and they said, "We really like how you played the game." And I was like, okay. I didn't think it was anything special, but got a nice trip to San Juan, Puerto Rico out of it.
Oh, wow. With a total stranger.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the tape burned up. My parents, Malibu is also famous for fires. Sure. So the tape of the Dating Game burned up when my parents' house burned down in the 90s. So no trace of it, thankfully.
You have kind of revisited that in your career now, and you have played Coach Bill Belichick on the Murder Made Me Famous Aaron Hernandez story.
Right.
And also you just wrapped up a movie with Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, well, actually, it's called Reagan. I actually shot my role in October of 2020. COVID really has delayed the release of the film. It's due out sometime in 2023. I don't want to act like I was a co-star. I had a few small roles, and I'm hoping that I make the final cut, because I think it's going to be a pretty popular movie.
Sure.
But I did shoot 2 roles for it, a broadcast journalist, using my broadcast journalist background. That's what I was cast for.
Anthony, a lot of people will recognize you and your voice from local commercials and voiceovers, but you also just recently filmed a role locally.
Yeah, this was a film done by a Wichita native who this is a crazy story. I worked with him on a commercial in St. Louis, and then I auditioned for a film that he was filming in Wichita. It's about his dad, who was a well-known civil rights attorney. And so we shot that. We shot it in 2022 in Wichita. Well, your junior associate clarifies the case law? I had a small role as a judge, but what was really neat about it we were able to turn that experience and do a profile of this filmmaker, Chris Lawing is his name, and make it into a Positively Kansas episode.
Oh, wow.
Portions of Penitentia were shot here at the historic Sedgwick County Courthouse. As a matter of fact, this is where I shot my role in the
I
film.
love it when things come together like that.
Yeah, it really meshed well.
That's
so.
awesome. So you got that role based on the fact that you have some practical experience on camera. You were one of our local anchors for many years.
Yeah, so I did the acting thing in LA for about 5 years, and I quickly discovered why they call it being a starving actor. And as I mentioned earlier, I got my degree in broadcasting. I always really wanted to be a news anchor, as I mentioned earlier too. So I left LA and began this local television news career that took me to 6 cities around the country. Went from LA to Savannah, Georgia to Santa Fe, New Mexico, then to Albuquerque, then to Oklahoma City, then to Kansas City, and finally to KSN, where I landed in September of 2004.
Even been attempted. Anthony Powell, KSN News.
Great timing, because 3 months later they arrested BTK.
Oh, yeah.
So I was there for
right
that.
in the middle.
Yeah, also a big story, Greensburg tornado.
Sure.
And then the killing of Dr. Tiller. So
Right.
I was at KSN for 3 of Wichita's biggest stories ever. Yeah, and then after leaving local news, I started my own freelance voiceover and on-camera business. And of course, one of the places I love to freelance for is PBS Kansas and the show Positively Kansas, which has been so great because, in local news, you do a lot of stories that are very tragic in nature. But Positively Kansas has just been a great experience. It's a very uplifting show, meet interesting people. As a matter of fact, one of the stories that I really fondly remember is going up to Hutchinson, and we did a profile on the actress Anita Corset, who played Andy Griffith's girlfriend in the show.
And as Anthony Powell is about to show us, the show is an important part of his roots as well.
There's also another person we're profiling in this piece, and that happens to be my father, Richard Powell. You see, like Anita Corset, my dad grew up in the Midwest, and like Miss Corset, he would eventually find his way out to Los Angeles, where he would write for TV and film. And one of the programs he worked on,
so I was able to tie in the fact that my dad had written for Andy Griffith with doing that. So, like you said earlier, it's always great when things can kind of mesh together.
Absolutely. And, PBS has a great lineup.
Oh.
And all this local talent and the local places we get to visit is just
such quality.
Nice.
It's just really fun to be such a part of quality programming.
Yeah.
And I've done dozens and dozens of stories for Positively Kansas, and it's just been a very positive experience.
Now, I know you are, you like to work out. You're a workout guy.
I do.
What's your workout like?
Well, I try to do something different every day. I go to a boot camp class. I do some personal training at the Y. I like to run. We have one of those, stationary bike at home too. But I truly believe this. There's nothing I believe in more, that working out is an absolute essential building block for a successful life. Because if you think about it, as adults, I think you would agree, the vast majority of things that we come across are out of our control. So therefore, we have to seize anything that we can control, and working out is one of them.
Sure.
And I mean, working out, gets you physically fit, makes you feel better mentally, and perhaps most importantly, gives you a sense of accomplishment. So that no matter what goes on in your day, we're all going to face tough things in our day.
Right.
We can always look back and say, hey, at least I worked out today and did something positive for myself.
Like adult recess.
Right.
It's very important.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, best wishes to you on your acting career as you move
Thank
forward.
you.
And thank you again for being our guest today.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
Thank you. We're back now with Phil, and we're going to find out about life's ups and downs and how he has faced the challenge. So, Phil, you did have a little health scare recently, and I know that was a huge impact in your life.
Oh, it was huge. I had a vertigo incident in April and could not figure out why. And so my whole world was spinning, which is not good when you're in communications. And so I went to several specialists to try and figure it out. Long story short, they figured out it was a virus that had landed on my vestibular nerves in my inner ear and completely destroyed the right vestibular nerves. I had a surgery to try and remedy the situation, which ended up giving me a pulmonary embolism.
Oh, goodness.
Which was another, so it was one thing on top of another. Yeah. So the summer of 2022 was not fun. I was chasing answers. Once we figured it out, started going to physical therapy and having to retrain my brain, because you can't fix what's gone. But your brain is such an amazing thing. You know, they gave me these exercises to do visually to basically create new neural pathways. So my brain would say, okay, since we can't do this anymore, we're going to do this. So now I've got, my balance back. I can drive. I still have light sensitivity. There was a while there, Mindy, where I was really, really concerned that that was going to be the thing that defined young Phil to old Phil. But I kept pushing through, and I kept going to the gym too. And I would do my physical therapy at the gym as well. People would see me lifting weights and doing this as I was lifting weights, or doing this while I was lifting weights. It's like, is that guy all right? It's part of the physical therapy.
Sure.
Once I saw a light at the end of the tunnel, which I'm seeing now, it gives me so much hope because I'm feeling great now.
You can't survive something like that and not be a changed person and want to give back, want to do things to help others. How's that affected you?
Well, yeah, it makes me a lot more grateful, a lot more compassionate. I mean, the thing about radio is you get a chance, an opportunity to help a lot of organizations, whether it's animals or people, or trying to raise money for disease cures, whatever the case may be.
And you're very involved with the Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
in fact,
Beauties and
you
Beasts.
just had an event recently.
Yeah, Beauties and Beasts is an 11th hour rescue, which means they go in. If there's a dog in a backyard on a chain, with no water, or it's in the heat, or it's in the cold, or if there's a puppy mill situation, or if there are dogs in the local shelter that are on the youth list, the euthanasia list, and these are dogs that don't need to be on the euthanasia list. They're perfectly healthy, but maybe they have a behavior problem, whatever the case may be. Beauties and Beasts will swoop in and they will rescue these dogs, and they will board them, and they will find fosters for them. And once a dog is in the Beauties and Beasts organization, it's always in the Beauties and Beasts organization. So they're constantly looking for not just monetary donations, but a big thing is fostering. If you can be a foster to a dog, that helps out, that gets one of the dogs out of boarding and into a home, and that's like the middle ground until they find a forever home. So you don't have to commit to having that dog forever.
Right. But you help with socialization.
Right.
And with some...
You're that bridge. You're the bridge from a bad situation to their permanent final home. And it's really fulfilling. And if anything, if you have the time, I would encourage that. Beautiesandbeasts.org is their website.
Well, that's such a wonderful way to give back. And so many people are animal lovers like I am, like you are.
Yes. Yeah. And again, we, do the causes like, the Kidney Foundation or St. Jude's. There's so many opportunities. And I love getting up in public and working a crowd, because I worked nightclubs that's how I got into radios. I worked nightclubs. So I love interaction with the crowd. And at a fundraiser, and you've got a crowd, so not only are you doing a good thing, but you're having fun doing it. So that's one of the favorite parts of my job.
And see, that is just how we just stay ageless and enthusiastic, is by having fun.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I can't see not doing this because, I'm not making a lot of money, Mindy. I chose the wrong profession when it comes to making money, but I'm having a good time. And I want to continue to do it as long as I can. And that's why I'm staying healthy. Because,
good for you.
Because if you're healthy and you're doing what you love, it's not really working at all.
And you're the richest person in the room.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, good for you. Well, Phil, thank you for being my guest today.
Thanks for having me, Mindy.
I know, you're fun. You're fun to listen to, and you're fun to talk to. So
thank you.
We'd like to have you back at some point.
I'd love to.
And thank you for joining us tonight. I'm your host, Mindy East, and this is Ageless Enthusiasm, and we look forward to having you join us next time.